Hi, everybody.
Hello, I'm Ryan.
I'm Bethany.
And we are Ryan and Bethany Board Game Reviews.
And today we'll be talking about Starship Interstellar. Get that box out of my face. Okay, this is designed by Andrea Crespi, David Calza, and it is published by Pendragon.
Alright, this is a very expansive space game. So what's happening basically is, this is in the somewhat distant future where the sun has finally decided it's time to explode. And we've got to vacate.
It's over us.
We've got to get out of here, man. Alright, so we are sending probe droids out to the TRAPPIST system, trying to figure out where we should live, where we should recolonize our planet, right? But also, in the meantime, we've got a little bit of time left. We've got to gather as many resources as possible from our own solar system in order to make that trip happen. All right, so we have Mercury all the way through Neptune. We're going to be kind of sending our own spaceships, our Explorer, out there in order to kind of set up a base camp in those places so that we can mine for more resources, produce more resources on those planets, bring them back to Earth so that we can ultimately build the spaceship parts that we need in order to make our full ship to get everybody back to the TRAPPIST system where we're going to be recolonizing. We're going to be taking people and putting them in cryo-freeze in order to send them there. We're going to be building spaceship parts, exploring the planets, getting these resources, all to try to get as many points as possible for our corporations. Alright, this kind of has three phases to it, three main phases. The first one is the action phase. That's where we're going to be sending out our Explorer to go to these different planets. We're going to use those planets to produce those goods so we can send them back to Earth. We're also going to be able to create some technologies during this phase. These technologies are going to give us some special abilities, some new buildings, new ways that we can get resources and gain things and get new ways of kind of efficiencies on our team. The next thing we can do is we can even mine the sun itself for resources, but it's going to, first of all, make us very unpopular as we are accelerating the planet, the sun itself blowing up. So it's going to make us unpopular on the reputation track as we're mining the sun itself for resources. So that's kind of the main action phase. What you're doing is you're gathering all the resources. Then you have the salvation phase. The salvation phase, what you're going to be able to do for that is you are going to be kind of gaining all your points that you've earned with your resources. So you're going to be doing things like taking a governor and kind of promoting them, gathering some extra special abilities with them, promoting them to a position of leadership. You're going to be sending your parts off to make sending your resources off to make parts of the spaceship. You're also going to be using your resources to send some of your citizens to be cryogenically frozen and ready for the transportation to the TRAPPIST system. All along the while, you're going up on these leadership tracks that are going to give you more special abilities. And you're trying to keep your reputation high, while at the same time, you're going to be doing things that are also making people unhappy, so you have to kind of balance your reputation as the game goes on. So, action phase, gathering stuff. Salvation phase, turning those things into points and reputation. So the third phase is the government phase, where you basically, whoever's in charge of the government at that time, kind of progresses the game forward, but they also take credit for all the things that's happening under their governorship. Alright, so those are the three main things that happen in the game. You can also pass a phase. Passing a phase is a very important way to get some additional resources. So if there's only some things you want to do this particular phase, you might pass earlier in the round. It's going to allow you to get some resources that are of higher quality, but also it's going to set you up for the next round to be the first player. So the pass token is a very fun way to kind of gather some extra resources and set up to make sure that you're the first one to be able to do actions in the next round, because that may be important.
Yeah.
Alright, so this is the game calls itself a 4X game. It's not a true 4X game. It definitely has Explore, it definitely has Expand, and it definitely has Exploit. It does not have extermination necessarily, except for by the planets themselves blowing up because of the sun. We excel. There's no combat in this game. We're not attacking each other. We're just simply corporations duking it out to be the best company making spaceships.
Yeah. That's basically it. I actually really thought the salvation phase was very interesting. Like, everybody can gather resources and do all of that, but in the salvation phase, there's all these different tracks that you're going up, and sometimes in games like this, you want to like focus in on one track and ignore the rest, but you really can't do that with this, because A, if you do that, you're going to give your opponents a ton of points, and B, you get special abilities as you move up in the tracks, and you're going to miss out on those special abilities. So you actually kind of, not every turn, but you almost have to do all of the different things every turn in order to not fall behind point-wise, in order not to fall behind on these special resources-wise. So I thought it was really interesting when it came to the salvation phase, how you couldn't ignore everything, but you also like just don't have the resources to do everything. And sometimes your your spaceship might be out and about and you haven't made it to Earth yet. So the resources that you've gathered on your ship, you can't even use those during the government phase because you're not on Earth. You haven't dropped those off yet. So then you really have your hands tied around your back. But I really liked how you couldn't ignore anything. You really needed to try to focus on everything.
The action tiles, the way that you're trying to trigger the actions in this game, are pretty cool. They're double-sided, first of all. One side represents the action phase, but once you're done with that, you do your pass token, you flip them over, and you represent the salvation phase actions that you can take. So they're kind of a double-use component, which is really cool. All right, so starting off, you only have just a few actions that you can take. There's 5 tokens that you have, ultimately. Four actions plus the producing on Earth. As you kind of gain footholds in these other planets in our solar system, you also get a production tile for those planets that you add into your pile. So now you can produce on Earth, and if you have a colony on Mars, you can produce there. If you have a base all the way on Neptune, you can produce there. Those are all action tiles that you're going to gain. But also, throughout the game, you're going to be able to go out, send your probe out to the TRAPPIST system. That's going to come back with an extra action tile. The various leadership rows are going to come back with action tiles as well. So then you're going to have all these extra action tiles that you're working with, and they can do all kinds of cool things that your starting tiles didn't do. Or they do the same things the action tiles did, but in a more efficient way. Maybe they're cheaper, or they do extra things, extra rewards as a bonus on them. So that's really fun. And then, of course, during the salvation phase, you flip them over. All the ones that had to do with planets specifically, you get rid of those for the salvation phase.
Yeet those tiles out of the round.
Now you have all these salvation actions. The neat thing about salvation actions is any tile can do anything, but some do it better than others.
Yes.
So you have a lot of flexibility during the salvation phase with those actions.
And I like how in the game, the closer planets you can kind of get to really quick, and you can start getting resources from them right away. And one of the planets offers like a lot of really of the expensive goodies, but those are the planets that, as the sun is getting bigger, are going to burn away first. So it's not like a player could go there right away and have access to all these awesome goodies. But if you wanted to, you could gather resources from the sun to make it so where that planet burns up. And so now they don't have those resources anymore. So I like that there's that pivot. You can go the long game and try to go out and to the further planets to get the resources. And you're going to last throughout the duration of the game with that. Or you can go to the planets that are close. But as the game progresses, there's going to come a time where you just don't have access to that. And everything you've built is gone. Those resources, those buildings, those technologies, they don't come back to you. They're like gone forever. So I liked how you can get out there right away, or you can plan long term, and that both of them are fairly viable pending your little proactive. And if somebody is getting a lot of stuff from those planets,
diversify your portfolio.
Yes, and like kill the sun.
I think that the scientist tokens, or these scientist guys that are out on the board, there's kind of a double use. You can do one or two things with them. One, which is my favorite part of this entire game, is using them to upgrade technologies. So you're able to kind of purchase these technologies by using resources, and you have to spend a scientist as well to activate them. And some of those technologies are just buildings. So you're going to be building these buildings, loading them up on your Explorer spaceship, and then you're going to build buildings on these faraway planets that are going to make it more efficient for you to gain the resources from that planet, or whatever the case is. But there's other technologies as well that are very strong. They give your leadership track special abilities. They can activate your corporation as a whole. Like there's things that you can do. Like one of them, my favorite ones was when you're doing the salvation phase and you're saving people from the cryogenic phase. You can only do one person per action, and you'll have a limited number of action tiles. But if you upgrade a technology, now you can do 2 people for 1.
Yeah.
So which is like a really strong way to keep the game going. So those technologies are extremely important. But you don't want to over-technologify, because that's a word, with your scientists, because there's also the government track. And you want to send scientists over there as well, because ultimately, in the future, scientists become the politicians because they know the most about space exploration or whatever. And so you're going to be sending your scientists over to the politician track, the government track, so that they can become the governors, get some special abilities over there, and ultimately take credit for all the scientific advancements that are going on during the government phase. So you don't want to spend all your scientists on advancements. You also want to send some of them over to the government board. So you got to want to balance those two, and it's kind of a dual use component, which is kind of cool. Just like the tokens are dual use.
Yeah. I do want to let everybody know that this is a table hog. You cannot get this game on a coffee table. You need like a dining room table to play this. Like
a big dining room table.
A full set.
We have an 8x4, and it filled the board.
It did.
It filled the table.
So you need a lot of space to play this game. You might, if you have like TV trays or something, you might have to do stuff like that because it is just a huge table hog. And I also wish that there was some type of player aid. When I learned the game really well, when somebody's teaching it to me, I can also have something to reference at the same time because then it clicks better. And so Ryan's trying to teach us this huge, expansive game, and I have no idea what he's talking about. And he'll point to something, but then it's gone. Like if I had a reference, I would be able to learn the game as he's teaching it instead of you're telling me all this stuff and now I have to learn while playing. Like I don't actually get to learn it. So that was a little frustrating. And then lastly, as a player, if we're all taking the very first same action, then the game needed to start after that. So that way the first turn that we take, we're taking, they don't have to necessarily be separate, but if you all have to take the same action in order for the game to progress, and it's not really interesting. So I would have preferred it, this is just a Bethany thing, if all the players would have started with a special resource based on player order. Because you can start like trading right away. Like you can do that action right away, whereas the beginning you weren't really able to.
And the market was like you couldn't even use it right away.
Yes, exactly. And so that's just like a Bethany thing. I would have preferred that instead of, okay, the game starts after we take a round of actions. And now the game started because we have all the stuff we need to start the game.
This game does require a big upfront load of information. So it's got 2 rulebooks. One that's a giant rulebook itself is like 28 pages. Then there's a second rulebook, which is like a reference guide. That's 24 pages. So there's a lot of information to take in
Oh
here.
my gosh, I'm like so happy I didn't even like attempt to learn this with the rulebook.
I had to read them both. I read them both like twice. Plus I watched some videos on this as well, and I still didn't get it. I had to kind of punch everything out, lay it out on the table, explore it all while reading the rulebook to get it. And then teaching it was kind of a nightmare too. So not only was the rulebook just a lot, I understand a game like this needs a big rulebook.
Yeah.
So I'm not faulting it for that. I'm just saying it's a lot to absorb. What I am faulting it for is being a bad rulebook. So there was quite a lot of information that had to be given here, but it was given in a way that was not digestible. It was, normally you have a components list up front, and then you kind of have a setup phase. It didn't do that. It did a components list. It did explaining parts of the game, and then setup, and then went into the rules. That was confusing. There was components that were given in the box and not explained what they were. Some of them ended up being variants, which we'll get into that later, were variants. I had to figure those out and kind of bag those separately for what I wanted to add those in. Some of them just hadn't been described yet. Some of them never got described. There's some components in this box I literally don't know what they're for. Never were talked about. I don't know what they were. Next, there was several items, not just one, but many items in the game that were introduced conceptually that said this thing exists, interact with it in some way, but then they were not brought up and explained what that was until the very end of the game. I can't work with that.
Yeah, and by then you've already moved past what that was. Like that's not in your mind.
So, for instance, there was something called future projects or long-term projects. It mentioned it early in the book, in the rulebook. It was like, and you can work on during this phase. You can work on future projects, long-term projects. What is a long-term project? I have no idea. Oh, here's where your long-term projects go. What is a long-term project? I don't know what a long-term project is. They're here. Oh, yeah, long-term projects, good stuff. You can't wait till you get to do those long-term projects. What is it? What's a long-term project? It wasn't until like the second to last page of the book, or the third to last page of the rule book, it finally was like, and here's where you turn regular projects into long-term projects. Oh. Tell me that then, so that I don't have to wonder that this entire time.
Yeah.
And that's just one small example.
This was not an isolated incident.
There were many, many things as I was reading these rule books where something was brought up, referenced,
but not explained on the board.
Not explained anywhere. Yeah. Nothing was, and the iconography was also kind of a mess. There was not a lot of mismatched iconography as far as some things were good. Like, okay, this one references this phase of the game, and so over here there's an icon that matches that.
Yeah.
Other times there was this over here references it, and then that's it. Then it's never brought up again. There is an icon reference sheet but it doesn't go through, like Bethany mentioned, it's not a player aid. It just
No.
shows the icons, and then those icons don't
And we
always match.
did find an icon that wasn't on the sheet.
Yes.
And
Yes.
we think this is what it means.
Yeah, it was like a mismatch of two different ones that
Yes.
meant two different things.
Yes, so that was fun.
I think that had to do with like the various levels of the Kickstarter, is like, we're adding this in, we're changing this, we're doing that, and there's just old kind of leftover little bits of various stages of development.
Maybe,
and
yeah.
like you never really put it all together in a cohesive way. So the rulebook left a lot to be desired, unfortunately.
Okay, so with all of that said, we're playing this game, and after we get to that first government stage and we're seeing how our resources are becoming things and we're scoring, it really just clicked. And I got into it. Like at first, the first time we played, I was telling Ryan, okay, if we're not done by this time, we just have to quit because I have other things that I need to do. And then that time passed, but I didn't realize it because I was like in the game at that point. So it really did suck me in, and I really enjoyed it afterwards. It was extremely expansive. It was, there was a lot of things to do in the game. I was involved. I was invested. I wanted to know what was going on. Unfortunately, just in our lives, we just do not have the time to weekly get down for a game that takes, 2-3 hours all the time. So that is unfortunate because I really did enjoy it. With all of our complaints aside, I really did enjoy it, and I felt like it did what it wanted to do really well. And if you're the type of person that plays those games, those bigger, expansive games routinely and all the time, like you're not a collector, right? You're not just trying to get games, but you want to get game to explore it. This is definitely one I would recommend. There was a lot to explore in it. All the annoyances that Ryan had with the rulebook, those questions were answered on Board Game Geek.
The designers were very active on Board Game Geek. The publishers were very active.
Yeah.
There was a lot of questions, because there's a lot of questions that I had too, but they were active, they were on it, they were responding to people with great answers that fulfilled what we needed to know.
Exactly. So after all was said and done,
Most of the time.
Yes, I actually really liked it, and it was funny because when we were first learning in that first round before we did the government phase, I'm like, I don't know, man. Like I don't think they're gonna pull it off.
I agree. I think that this game hits a certain rhythm after a while. Early on, it's like taking an action. Okay, go to the rulebook, rehash, make sure that I get a good idea of what that action does. Okay, now it's your turn. Let's read what that does. Okay, it's my turn. Let's read what that does.
Yes.
But then sooner or later, it's like ding, 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 ding. The turns are going so much faster. There's this great decision point of when to pass and when not to pass. Do I pass ahead of time so I can go earlier? And, am I going to get better resources because I still have leftover tiles? Or whatever the case is. I love that little decision point of passing. So small, so subtle, but actually it's meaningful. Another thing that's really cool is, I mentioned earlier, kind of hinted at it, there's a ton of little kind of mini variants, mini expansion modules, if you will, that change up the gameplay in small little subtle ways. Extra resource cubes, variable pass tokens, different things that you can put out on the Explore, the probe track, all different kinds of things. The leadership tracks are all have variable ways that you can interact with those. Tons and tons of different little mini expansion modules that you can add in to kind of give you lots and lots of replayability. I mean, this game had lots of replayability in the sense of that it's just so much going on. But now, with all those little expansion things, add in one at a time. Put all of them in. Whatever you want to do, it's just got a ton of replayability. You get a lot of bang for your buck in this game. For a 3.5x game, you really get a ton of content here. This is not a game that I'm going to be like, yes, because it's not my style. I do like that there was no combat. I put this over other games in that 4X category because of that. I'm just not a combat kind of guy unless this game is very much direct combat.
Yeah, if that's what the game
combat,
is. Yeah.
I like that a lot. But if it's like build up your stuff and fight, but you might lose some stuff, I don't like that as much.
Yeah.
So for that reason, this worked really well for me. Again, not an everyday play for me, not an every week play for me, not an every month play for me, but once a year, I'm going to really enjoy this.
Yeah.
But again, if you have a smaller collection, you're going to have a chance to play this on a more regular basis and really dig into it deep. I think you're going to have a lot of fun playing and discovering this game.
Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe so you can see our videos as they come out. Until then, you can find us in all of these places.
Yes, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
You guys, thanks so much for watching. This game was provided to us by a publisher in exchange for a fair and honest review.
And if you want to see more stuff, check out over here to see something we think you might like.
And over here, we think that YouTube has picked out a great video for you you're going to love. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.
Bye.